Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let us pray. Almighty God, we willingly acknowledge you as the Supreme Being, most gracious, most merciful. Look down. We beseech you on us, who are members of this Senate, and deign to assist us in the duties that we have to perform on behalf of our beloved country of Trinidad and Tobago. Open our eyes to see the truth and help us to accept it with all its implications into our lives. Direct us, O Lord, in our deliberations, so that setting aside private interests, unwholesome prejudices, and personal affections, we may treat with all matters set before us with honesty, courage, and conviction. Through all we say and do in this Senate, may we give glory and honor to your holy name, inspire confidence in our fellow citizens, and make a positive contribution to the peace and prosperity of our nation.
Announcements by the Vice President.
Honorable Senators, the office of the President of the Senate has fallen vacant owing to the resignation of Senator the Honorable Christine Kangaloo with effect from January the 17th, 2023. In accordance with Standing Order 42M, I now call upon the clerk to conduct the proceedings for the election to the President of the Senate.
Honourable members, in accordance with Standing Order 42M of the Senate, I now invite proposals for the office of President of the Senate.
Mr. Clerk, I propose that Mr. Nigel De Freitas do take the chair of this Senate as President. Senator De Freitas is no longer a Minister of Government.
Do I have a seconder?
Mr. Clerk, I beg to second that nomination.
Are there any other proposals? There be no further proposals. I now declare Mr. Nigel De Freitas, Senator Nigel De Freitas, the duly elected President of the Senate.
Honorable Senators, the sitting will be suspended to allow for the President to be robed. Excuse me. I do apologize. I would like to remind the Senate that I am on my feet, and thank you so much. Honorable Senators, the sitting will be suspended to allow for the President to be robed and assume the chair. I now invite the Marshal to escort the President to be robed.
Announcements by the President.
Honourable Senators, leave of absence has been granted to Senator David Naked, who is out of the country. Honourable Senators, I have received the following correspondence from Her Excellency the President, Paula May Weeks, ORTT. The Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, by Her Excellency Paula May Weeks, ORTT, President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, to Senator the Honourable Christine Kangaloo. Whereas, by the provisions of Section 43(2)(e) of the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the President, in exercise of the power vested in her and acting in accordance with the advice of the Prime Minister, is empowered to declare the seat of a senator to be vacant. Now, therefore, I, Paula May Weeks, President as aforesaid, acting in accordance with the advice of the Prime Minister, in exercise of the power vested in me by the said Section 43(2)(e) of the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, do hereby declare the seat of you, Christine Kangaloo, to be vacant with effect from the 17th of January 2023. Given under my hand and the seal of the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago at the office of the President St. Anne's this 17th day of January 2023. Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, by Her Excellency Paula May Weeks, ORTT, President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, to Mr. Richie Sukai. In exercise of the power vested in me by Section 42(a) of the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, I, Paula May Weeks, President as aforesaid, acting in accordance with the advice of the Prime Minister, do hereby appoint you, Richie Sukai, Senator, given under my hand and the seal of the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago at the office of the President St. Anne's this 17th day of January 2023. Honourable Senators, the Senator is required to take the oath.
I, Richie Sukai, have been appointed a Member of Parliament, do swear by the Holy Bhagavad Gita that I will bear true faith and allegiance to Trinidad and Tobago, and will uphold the Constitution and the law, and will conscientiously and impartially discharge the responsibilities of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, upon which I am about to enter.
Honourable Senators, At this point in time, I'm awaiting a further instrument of appointments, which will be read out as soon as we receive them. Senator Mark?
Well, first of all, let me congratulate you on your assumption to the chair. Mr. President, I'd just like you to advise this Honorable Senate, at what time do you expect, seeing that we have a short sitting today, at what time do you expect the instrument to arrive here? Because the temporary senator who came from San Fernando sent 7:30, and our instrument was deposited at the particular location that is supposed to be deposited at 8 a.m. this morning. And I am very, very concerned that because of the short sitting, I do not know when this instrument is going to arrive so that our temporary senator could take up her seat in place of David Nackett, Senator Dak Nackett, who is out of the country. So I'm asking you, as President of this Honorable Senate, if you can guide us as to when you believe or what steps you can take to ensure that the instrument which is supposed to be issued and the letter that was delivered at 8 a.m. this morning, when are we going to get that instrument so our colleague could be able to take a seat? I ask your guidance, for your guidance on this matter, sir.
To Mark, the process that would allow for the answer in which you're seeking doesn't reside with the office of the Parliament, and as such, I am unable to advise as you've asked, because once again, the process does not reside with the office of the Parliament. What I can indicate is as soon as we receive the instrument, it would be read out. Thank you.
Questions on notice, questions for oral answer.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. President of the Senate, congratulations, and I'm pleased to advise this chamber that the government is prepared to answer all 3 questions for oral answer.
Senator Mark.
Mr. President, before I pose my question, I want to give you the undertaking and the assurance that once I am in this chamber, no one will be allowed to rob you of your robe. Mr. President, may I pose question number 22 to the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries.
Minister of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, because of reports of concerns by the staff of the Predial Larceny Squad over their working conditions, among other things, I convened 2 meetings to ascertain the true situation with respect to the operations of this unit. The first meeting involved the executive team, led by the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, and the head of the Predial Larceny Squad. The second meeting saw the head of division along with representatives of the Predial Larceny Unit and the executive team of the ministry. These meetings highlighted the nature of the issues faced by the Predial Larceny Squad, thereby prompting an immediate response from the ministry. As it relates to treating with the current accommodation of the Predial Larceny Squad, the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries has identified a section of the research compound in Farm Road, St. Joseph, to house the north and northeast stations of the squad in the short term. Refurbishment works were completed within the third week of August, and the officers took occupation on August 28, 2022. Additionally, upgrade works were completed on the Carsonfield station, which currently houses both the south and central stations temporarily. The south and east stations, as well as the administrative arm office, has been assessed, and the procurement for the required infrastructural improvement are well underway. Additionally, the procurement of the 3 new vehicles at the evaluation stage and an award of the contract is expected by February 2023. In closing, Mr. President, I would like to reaffirm the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries committed to addressing the administrative and occupational health and safety concerns of the entire Predial Larceny Squad and all personnel under this remit. Thank you.
Senator Mark.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I ask the Honourable Minister, apart from those 2 issues highlighted by the Honourable Minister, are there any other outstanding issues surrounding working conditions involving the Predial Larceny Squad, apart from those 2 that you have highlighted to the Senate?
Minister.
Thank you, Senator Mark. And as you know and the country knows, I am a hands-on person at the ministry. And I call in meetings with all the stakeholders, the entire Predial Larceny Squad. Some were working, they couldn't come, but they were met afterwards. The entire team at the Ministry of Agriculture. We met, we spoke, and I intend to fix every problem that we have at the Predial Larceny Squad. The Predial Larceny Squad is an important, very important squad within the Ministry of Agriculture, because the farmers look forward to working with them. We intend to increase the squad in a couple of months' time, and we have been allocating in the budget money to deal with this. So I thank you and I give you the assurance.
Chairman, can I?
Senator Mark.
Yeah. Through the President, Honourable Minister, given the spans, the expanse, and the coverage as it relates to the policing by the Predial Larceny Squad, can the Minister indicate whether the provision or acquisition of 3 vehicles for that unit would be adequate, or whether, or let me just deal with that one question at a time. Would you want to share with the Senate whether that is a first start or first attempt on your part to adequately provide those facilities in terms of vehicles for this squad? And you have more in mind?
So what's the question, Senator Mark? Is
My
it a first
question
attempt?
is a simple one. Can the Minister indicate whether the 3 vehicles outlined by him is adequate for the workings of this very important unit? That's a question.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Mark, for the question. And as I said before, we are concentrating on the 3 vehicles, bringing it up to standard, and we intend to increase the vehicles to the rest of the unit. So we're looking to get more vehicles down the road.
Advise this Honourable Senate is as to whether there's a time frame for repairing of those 3 vehicles so that they can be made available to the squad to carry out their important function. Is there any time frame for the completion of same?
Minister.
And thank you again, Mr. President and Senator Mark. Only yesterday evening, I met with the fleet manager of the Ministry of Agriculture, and we spoke. They're in the process right now, as we speak, that they are working on them. As a matter of fact, they drove in with one yesterday that was repaired to meet me at the office. And they'll be working on the two others. And as I said, I am in constant contact with the fleet manager. There's a new one came in there, and I'm in contact with him. And I can assure the farming community that we will increase the vehicles to deal with the farming community at the Prairie Larceny Squad. I'm taking a special interest in the Prairie Larceny Squad.
Senator Mark, final
President,
supplemental.
The final question.
Final.
The final question to my honourable colleague. Honourable Minister, as you are aware, there is an inadequate supply of personnel to man this very important unit. Can you advise the Senate what steps are being taken by your ministry to provide more personnel in that particular unit so that that important function can be properly executed?
Minister.
Again, Mr. President, Senator Mark. Within the last 3 to 4 weeks, as I told you before, and I'm telling the country again, I have been meeting personally together with my colleagues at the ministry, and we are getting the recommendations from the Prairie Larceny Squad because they are the ones actually in the job, and I am here to listen, and we are here as the policy makers to execute and get it done. They have requested more personnel at the squad, and we are working on it, but there's a process has to go through to employ and to advertise and to, the whole procedure to get them in. And I give you in particular, and especially the farmers of this country, the Prairie Larceny Squad will be increased.
Next question on the order paper, Senator Mark.
I'm waiting for the individual.
Yeah.
Who is the person coming? Mr. President. Question number 23 to the Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister.
Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. The proposed timeframe for the proclamation of Section 17 has been determined as the end of March 2023. Thank you.
Senator Mark, supplement.
Can I ask my honourable colleague in the Office of the Prime Minister, in light of the fact that the proclamation of Section 17 is to happen or take place at the end of March 2023, can the Minister explain to this Honourable Senate whether she's aware of a license being issued to a home that has been condemned by several reports issued by bodies that have been charged with examining the operations of this very home or such a home? Can the Minister advise whether the government has issued such a license or licenses to such homes?
Senator Mark, you've asked 2 questions there and both aren't allowed. Next supplemental.
Can I ask, through you, Mr. President, if the Minister could indicate what were the reasons for the length of time it has taken to have this matter addressed and action taken as stated by the Honourable Minister by the end of March 2023. Can the Minister indicate to this Honourable House what were the factors or reasons for the delay of such a very important provision, Mr. President?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. Prior to the coming into force of the laws governing the children's home and the regulations, we didn't have a regulatory framework before. We needed to give the facilities time to get themselves ready. Throughout that period, government has been working alongside the Children's Authority to provide the necessary technical and financial assistance to assist the various homes to bring them up to code.
Senator Mark.
Through you, Mr. President, when the regulations necessary to govern this piece of legislation, particularly when Section 17 is proclaimed, can the Minister indicate, Mr. President, when those regulations will be tabled?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. Honourable Member, the regulations were indeed done. However, we needed to give the facilities time so that they could reach their human resource capacity, their physical infrastructure capacity, etc. We have determined that by the end of March, the homes that are ready to be licensed would be licensed because due to funding allocated to Gender and Child Affairs for the purpose of helping the facilities, they would get up to code.
Minister, Senator Mark,
Yeah.
supplementary.
Can I ask the Honourable Minister, in those circumstances, through the President, when do you anticipate, Honourable Minister, that the regulations would be tabled or formally issued or gazetted? Can you advise?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. President. That will happen when the proclamation is done. Thank you, Mr.
Next supplemental on the order paper, Senator Mark.
Supplemental or question?
No, sorry, next question on the order paper.
I know that you have been away for a little while, so I forgive you. Mr. President, question number 24 to the Minister of National Security.
Minister of National Security.
Thank you very warmly, Mr. President. Mr. President, according to information received from the Commissioner of Police, on the 27th of June 2022, officers of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, Northern Division North, conducted an exercise which resulted in the arrest of one person who was subsequently charged for the offense of sacrilege committed at the Karapo Temple, having defaulted on payment of a fine imposed by the Arima magistrate at the Arima Magistrates Court in July of 2022, the accused was taken to the Golden Grove prison where he was confined. However, he was again released on November the 18th, 2022. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Mark, supplemental.
Can I ask the Honourable Minister what steps, as far as he's aware, will be taken by the TTPS to address what appeared to be a trend emerging where churches, temples, mosques are desecrated by individuals and for reasons best known to themselves. Can the Minister indicate whether he can advise us what steps can be taken or he has been advised will be taken by the TPS to discourage such desecration?
Minister.
Mr. President, perhaps even anecdotally, one would have observed that a number of those incidents have in fact taken place in places of worship across Trinidad and Tobago over the past few years. I am certain that in the generality, in the very arduous efforts of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to police this country and to maintain law and order, they would have been paying particular attention to places of worship in light of that kind of activity, providing the patrols and the security that is obviously required in those circumstances. It is not, however, only a matter for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. It also directly involves the municipal police, and as the Senator would know, the government has increased substantially the numbers of municipal police officers across the regional corporations in Trinidad and Tobago, and part of their focus is to look on local buildings, public grounds, cemeteries, facilities, places of worship, in order to ensure that they are properly patrolled and secured on behalf of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Senator Mark.
Mr. President, can I ask the Honourable Minister whether the government is contemplating making any changes to the legislation to address this trend as a deterrent or potential deterrent for any future would-be persons or individuals who may seek to desecrate our mosques, our temples, and our churches?
Minister.
I am not aware of any consideration for amendment to the existing legislation. In fact, it is my view that the improved policing that I have just described would treat with some of this. In some of the cases, from my own anecdotal recall, Mr. President, persons who might be afflicted with psychiatric conditions have engaged in some of this conduct. So it is a matter for the whole of government to deal with, other elements of the government, that is to say. But to answer the question specifically, I cannot support the proposition that a change in legislation necessarily is under contemplation at this time.
Senator Mark.
Very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Leader of Government Business.
Mr. President, I beg to move that this Senate do now adjourn to Wednesday, 25th January 2023 at 1:30 p.m., at which point the government proposes to debate the finance bill to completion.
Senator Mark.
Can I ask the Honourable Minister, Leader of Government Business, when Private Members' Day, are we addressing that on the Tuesday of January? That is the 24th? Because you talk about the 25th, which is the Wednesday. So are we coming on the Tuesday to deal with private members' business? Through the President?
Mr. President, as indicated, we propose to next convene on Wednesday, the 25th. Thank you.
Senator Mark, it's not going to be a long debate. Make it brief.
I know, but I'm asking the Leader of Government Business whether Private Members' Day, which is entrenched in the law that we are part of, whether that would be observed in the month of January as is normal. I'm trying to get that as a commitment and an undertaking.
Members, is it your will that you wish for me to suspend for 5 minutes so that you can have a discussion on this matter? All right, Leader of Government Business.
Mr. President, thank you. The commitment I can give to Senator Mark is that we will have some communication, and as always, the government will take all possible measures to ensure that the opposition and the other side of the aisle is given the facility of moving for Private Members' Day. So I will have direct communication with the Leader of the Opposition bench on this matter. As it stands now, we are adjourning to the 25th. I give you this commitment.
Honourable members, before I put the question, permit me to express my gratitude for the congratulations that have been conveyed to me in my election to this office as the President of this Senate. As indicated when I took up the office of Vice President of the Senate so many years ago, I reiterate today that I intend to work with each and every one of you towards the maintenance and adherence to the highest standard of debate in this chamber and decorum. Again, I express my gratitude. Thank you. Let me also say to Senator Sukai, welcome to the Senate of Trinidad and Tobago. Honorable Senators, the question is that this House do now adjourn to Wednesday, the 25th of January, 2023 at 1:30 p.m. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. This House now stands adjourned to Wednesday, the 25th of January, 2023 at 1:30 p.m.